HSR Motorsport GT3 Season 2 Championship. You join us today for round 3 here at Barcelona in Spain. My name is Yanis Mayer. I'll be commentating for you guys throughout this weekend and hopefully the rest of the championship as well. Practice has just gotten underway. We're about 4 minutes in. We have 1 hour of practice, followed by 20 minutes of qualifying and then 1 hour of racing. Now don't worry, I'll go over all this again in just a moment. I appreciate it might have been a bit quick. But yes, today, news is we have 4 new drivers joining us for this championship. And we are currently watching one of them now, Hosco, having joined very recently in fact. And he is in the AM category. A couple new additions to all the categories really. We've got new pro drivers, we've got pro-am drivers, and we've got new AM drivers. And Hosco is one of those new AM drivers. A really nice yellow and red Ferrari. Coming across the line to set the first lap for practice. A 1:47.970. We also have another couple of drivers out there on track setting some more laps. We currently have about 11 drivers on the grid, but that number will obviously fill up as the evening progresses. We are hoping to have about 40 drivers in by the time we hit qualifying. Obviously that's, again, quite an optimistic figure. We've only managed to get about 30 drivers or so in as a maximum so far this season. But one can never give up hope. We should continue to wait for more drivers to join. Hosco then still the only driver to have set a lap time. Car number 71. As we mentioned earlier, he is one of the new drivers. So welcome to Hosco. Hope you have had a warm reception and good luck with the race. Similarly, we've got new drivers such as Mark, Bernino and Dieringer, who will be joining us this evening later on. Maybe not online at the moment. But good luck to all our new joiners. I appreciate they have joined us pretty much halfway through the season, so they will have to catch up if they hope to finish competently within the championship. Of course, each class does make it fairly nice for each of these drivers. It means they don't have to worry about overall standings, but they are still at a points deficit, so they will have to work hard for that deficit. However, it's not only the new drivers who are losing out. We do have some other drivers who have maybe lost out on points at last race. I know a couple of drivers who didn't participate, including our first 2 podium finishers, Dixon and Hearn, as well as Pitt and I'm not sure about the other drivers. But they, of course, will have to make up that deficit. The drivers can be at that deficit or be at such a disadvantage due to just natural circumstances. They maybe have a very busy family life, so it's hard for them to be able to make it to every single race. I know from personal experience I've had a couple times where I've had to just back off because I have other stuff planned, and it's really just that simple. Just looking at the track temperatures. Of course, it being Spain, we are looking at really warm temperatures compared to the last 2 races. 38 degrees ambient temperature, which is about the temperature where you'd expect most guys to go topless, I think. Here in the UK, we are getting a couple days where we may maybe consider doing that, but it's definitely not 38 story of this evening, this race weekend, is going to be Topinka. He's currently won every single race from pole of the season. And so today, if he wins this race, it will be a hat-trick. He will have won half the races in the championship. We do only have 6 races this season, so it is going to be a great race today, and I'm sure the other drivers will
Good
be
evening,
sure.
Yanis.
Good evening, Craig. How are you doing
Sorry
today?
to disturb you, mate. It was just to quickly let you know your mic's a bit quiet on the stream, that was all.
Cool, no worries. I'll turn that down in a second. Thank you for the feedback.
No, that's all right, no problem. Somebody just let me know, so I thought I'd just come in and let you know.
Yeah, good. Appreciate it. Good luck with your
No
race, by
problem,
the way.
mate. Enjoy. Hope you have a good evening.
Yep, you too, sir. Have a great
Speak to you
race.
soon, mate.
Craig Hewlett there, owner of HSR. Great guy, as always. And I've upped the volume on my mic, so hopefully that will have fixed the issue. But of course, throughout the race, we'll obviously work on that. Oh, I know what I've done. Hold on. There we go. I turned down the wrong slider. Now we will have a hot lap from one of our members in just a moment. However, before we do so, we will be having an interview also with one of the drivers down there today, just to hear how their weekend is going to what their weekend is going to look like, what they hope for, and just general cool stuff. So we'll do the hot lap after the interview. At the moment, Topinka, as always, on top of things, right at the top of the leaderboard. Number 1, followed closely by Rebecci, and then Morris. Morris, actually, last race, he was Pro-Am and managed to qualify P2 overall. So a great performance from him. Secured a spot in the Pro class. Unfortunately, during the race, it was not so lucky. A stop-and-go penalty bringing an end to his podium dreams. And we will see whether he will be able to scrape a podium today. It will be his first of the season, so it'll be nice to have new blood on the podium. But as always, Topinka still on top and always the one to be aiming for. Let's go on board with Topinka. Let's follow him around the circuit. You can see him coming through turns 1 and 2. Currently our championship leader. As I said, he's been absolutely destroying the races so far. And I'm sure he's looking to keep that record going. Of course, we do have the other classes, Am and Pro-Am. Unfortunately, at the moment, we do not have many Pro-Am drivers on the grid in the server. But I'm sure they will join us shortly. In the meantime, Am takes up the armour, namely Hosco in P4. And he's actually managed to set the time faster than Oliveira. Of course, this is just practice, so we can't really take too much away from this. But all I know is Topinka, for the past 2 races, has set the fastest time in practice and gone on to qualify pole and then win the race from there. So when it comes to this man in the McLaren, consistency is going to be his aim. Now I know I said we would do the interview before we do the hot lap, however, it is looking to be a, well, our driver's currently out there doing laps, so we will be back in just a second. And let's go now for a hot lap of Spain, Barcelona. Here we go now, down the straight, turn 1 coming up. As we floor it, this is from Jim Fox, one of our own drivers. Coming into the braking zone, just at the 100-metre board, into a lovely right, left, right sequence, using all of the curb available, and through this long right-hander, turn 3, Renault. It's a difficult corner to keep the car on the limit, but should you get it right, you'll have a beautiful exit out into the curb. Stay as far to the left as you can for Repsol, turn 4. You can actually carry a lot of speed into there, and you can see you didn't actually clip the apex as much using the camber and the aero. Similar now in turn 5, Seat. Again, he's not using that inner curb just because he's trusting the natural camber of the track and the aero of the McLaren. Coming through the left kick into turn 7 and 8, another lovely sequence. High curve on the left and a dangerous one on the right. Use as much as you dare, and similar curve to turn 7 as we come through Campsa. You can abuse it, but dismounting and mounting that curve could lose you time if you do it wrong. Down the straight into turn 10, La Casa is a hairpin. Use that inside curb, hook the tyres onto the curb, and you'll have a load of grip. Coming into turn 11 and 12, sorry, another long right-hander. Keep it on the limit of grip, and be aware of where you place your car on the exit, because there is gravel on the exit. Through the right-hander, keep it tight to the right into the chicane. Make sure you are not hitting the sausage curbs, and then through the final corner, flat out and cross the line. And that was a hot lap by our own Jim Fox. Thank you for the lap, Fox. Best of luck with the race. And that was our hot lap. And hopefully we will see good performance from Fox today as well in the Pro-Am category. Right now we are still following Topinka, and here are the lap times. Currently, if you look on the left side of your screen, you'll see Topinka with a 1:44.185 as the fastest as he comes into the pits actually. Let's go live with Hewlett, currently in P2, half a second off of Topinka in the HSR branded McLaren. Last week, Hewlett managed to score his first podium finish of the season. He qualified 3rd overall, and then during the race had a bit of an issue with his pit stop, some technical difficulties, and he unfortunately fell down to P8, but managed to build up another astounding performance to finish P2 with a last lap overtake on Rebecci, our current P3 driver. It truly was a last lap miracle. He's also coming into the pits now, the less official way to do it. Let's go on board with Rebecci now in the Omega Motorsport Italia McLaren. We do have a couple of these cars out on the grid, and they're all pretty competent drivers. All clean as well. We haven't had any issues with these drivers in the past. And Rebecci is just under a second off of Topinka in practice. And you can see he's now gone up to P2, but that is because some of the drivers are kind of joining and leaving the server. So when they return, their lap times will be restored on the leaderboard. As I said, at the moment we can only speculate as to the performance during the race. As we said, Topinka pretty much being the only one that has managed to relate practice pace to qualifying pace. We saw Mishk last race at the Nürburgring showing promising speed and worrying Topinka maybe slightly, but definitely Hewlett and Rebecci. But unfortunately during qualifying he just couldn't pull it together to finish representative of his practice lap times. And that is why you cannot necessarily trust the times you are seeing on the board at the moment. But it just gives you something to speculate about, you know? Now, of course, Barcelona is one of those tracks that is absolutely awesome to try and qualify and do hot laps on. So there's just so much of the circuit that you need to learn about and, yeah, just kind of figure out the small details about. However, during the race, that is not necessarily the case. There's only maybe 2 or 3 overtaking opportunities, really, that are realistic. The rest would be kind of desperate lunges, if you will. And of course, those do tend to end up in the gravel trap, which fortunately there is a lot of here. And Rebecci then through the final section. So it is still Topinka, Hewlett and Rebecci to watch for the top 3 spots as Rebecci comes into the pits now. Go on board with Morris, our last race's kind of headline driver. As we said before, Morris was in the Pro-Am category and managed to qualify P2 overall and suffered an unfortunate stop-and-go penalty that put him right back down to the bottom. However, his pace was enough to guarantee a class transition into the Pro category. So today will be his first race in this class. However, there shouldn't be too much difference. It just means that we have another contender for the championship in the Pro class. Now, of course, with Topinka winning the last 2 races, it does mean he does have quite a big lead over the drivers in P2 and ascending. We also have 2 other drivers who in round 1 actually managed to keep pace with Topinka quite well, considering the gap was only a second or 2 by the time they reached the end of the race. Unless, sorry, that was a second between P2 and P3. It was a larger gap to Topinka ahead. But they were also, you know, they were challenging for P2. There was a close battle for that, and actually Craig Hewlett, who's our P2 driver at the moment, he was also up there, qualified P3, and again, just due to some sort of technical difficulty, he had to start from the pit lane. But he made a resurgence and finished P15 overall. So I'm hoping he has a clean race this time. No technical difficulties. Let's go on board with Morris now. Because we saw the hot lap from Fox earlier, who is of course a Pro-Am driver, and now we're on board with Morris, who's in the Pro category. And he's just come into the pits, unfortunate then for us. But we will find another driver. We'll go on board now with Dieringer, actually, one of our new Pro-Am drivers who's joined us recently. His first race of the season, looking to leave a mark on the leaderboard. He's currently following the McLaren of Mellet. Another, I believe another HSR Motorsport branded car. We're at 2 or 3 of those on the grid, which is absolutely awesome to see. So he's using all of the exit curb there through turn 5. Coming through the kink, turn 7, just completely avoiding that curb to the left. So as we said, you abuse that corner too much, and your car is just too unstable through the following corners. Chicane. You can see how much that sausage curb affected Mellett's line. Of course, during practice, you do want to make sure you aren't getting in the way of the other drivers and interfering in their laps. Of course, each driver to each his own, might be trying different things. Some drivers will be working on their setup. Other drivers will merely just be doing laps to familiarise themselves with the track, with the conditions, and oftentimes with the car as well. Ringer currently in P6, 1.9 seconds off of the practice leader. We are hopefully going to be having our interview soon with one of the drivers. It will be our first time. Just having issues getting them here. But meanwhile, we stay on board with Dieringer. And there we go. So, Nige Woodcutt joins me in the commentary box. Thank you for being here, Nige.
Hi. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. So
yeah, good evening. Hi.
Good to see you, good to see you. Now, of course, your race season has been a bit rough, hasn't it? The first race at Silverstone didn't quite work out as you might have expected. What are your expectations for this race?
Hopefully everything's working this time. I'm not going to have any dodgy accelerators. Get a good qualifier and just get some good consolidate some good points, because I missed out last week's race as well. I was away. So.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into my next question then, kind of how do you plan on closing that points deficit to the rest of the grid?
Well, we're entitled to one dropped week. I've already taken that, unfortunately, early in the season, so I'm just going to have to make sure I'm there for the rest of the season and do me damnedest.
Yeah, indeed. Final question, don't want to keep you too long. We still have 3 races after Barcelona. Considering you've missed the race already, where do you expect to finish in the championship and why?
It's going to be tough in the pros for me. I'm probably Pro-Am, but I'm enjoying the challenge, so I'll be just happy to finish every race. That'll do me.
Yeah, fair enough. Cool, I won't hold you any longer. Thank you for joining us for the short interview, and best of luck with the race.
Glad to have helped. I hope it's a good race for the viewers as well. It's pretty warm out there today, so it'll be good.
Yeah, indeed. Cool.
Thank
See you out there, sir.
Good night. Bye.
And that was Nigel Woodcote, one of our racers, qualified P16 at Silverstone, and actually finished P13, so made some progress over the course of the race. But as mentioned, unfortunately he missed out last race. Now we don't get penalised for that if the drivers let us know in advance they can't make it. So fortunately there's no points against him, but it does mean when it comes to the overall championship standings, he's going to be at a disadvantage. Looking at the practice times, Topinka still on top, the 1:44.1, followed by Hewlett half a second off, and then Rebecci another full second off of that. We currently have 21 drivers out here today. As Woodkid said, you know, it's a warm track. That means grip is going to be pretty much optimal, but of course with these long fast right-handers, those left set of tyres, the fronts and rears, are going to be overheating, potentially, depending on the setup. It really depends on each car, depends on the driving style really. Well, the main things from setup that could influence the tyre temperatures are going to be camber and toe. Now, camber is kind of how angled the cars are to the vertical. So that's kind of, if you imagine a tuned car from the street, say, like a Toyota Supra that's just been like madly tuned, it's kind of going to sit quite weirdly on its wheels, and its wheels are going to kind of be popping out to the side. And of course that does look cool, but race cars also use that because of how the car rolls as you come through the corners. Having that extra bit of camber means that you're actually optimizing the amount of surface your tire is exposed to. So if you imagine just running it completely flat down a straight, you're going to have loads of grip indeed, but around the corners you'll be using, I don't know, maybe 50%. I don't know the exact percentages. I'm not a professional at car setup, but the principle is the contact patch between your tires and the track are maximized when you get the right amount of camber on. Too much, you obviously won't get the maximum amount of grip. Too little, and during the corners your car's just going to feel like it's on ice. Now toe is where the tires are kind of angled out in relation to the car. So if you look at it from the front, it'll look, if you imagine the Disney film Cars and the way their wheels kind of go out as they gesture, that's basically what toe is. You get positive toe, which is where the car's wheels point inwards, and you get negative toe where they point outwards. Now, depending on what side of the car it is, if it's front or rear, it will have different things. So positive toe on the rear will mean that the car is just more stable under braking. Now, negative toe on the rears is not generally used pretty much ever. because there's just no use for it. It's just extra wear and tear on the tyres. On the fronts, however, having toe positive means you'll also have more stability on turning, I imagine. And negative toe means the car is going to be a bit more responsive. It's going to be a bit more nippy, a bit more nimble. And so what happens often with cars that are naturally nimble is that you need to turn down the toe on the cars. It obviously depends on driving style as well. If you prefer a very reactive car, something that responds to your inputs quickly, then having lots of negative toe is obviously going to be beneficial. However, if you're driving a very bumpy circuit, let's say Nordschleife, then maximizing stability over performance might be the way to go, especially if it is a endurance race. Now, of course, the dangers with toe is adding too much, where the tyres actually start just scraping along the ground and degrading as you're going down the straights. And especially in Barcelona, where the track temperatures are so high, that toe is going to need to be on the right balance between performance and temperature. Because the moment your tyres start overheating, you're going to be sliding and slipping, and, you know, generally you think heat, oh, that's good for the tyres. Too hot, also not good. There's plenty these drivers have to consider when it comes to setup. As we have 24 minutes remaining in practice, our top 20 drivers all setting laps. You can see there's about 6 seconds between the top driver and the driver in last position, Christoph. We've had a reshuffle at the top for P3 and P4. Priatko in the Ferrari, car number 84, he's managed to secure P3 instead of Rebecci. Rebecci's dropped down to P4, and then Morris P5, followed by Eck in P6. But he's the only Pro-Am driver, one of only 3 Pro-Am drivers in the top 10 at the moment. We saw a very good performance from Eck last race, in fact. He started quite high up on the grid, but not anything crazy. And then during the race, managed to go all the way up to P3 and held off a charging Craig Hewlett for a decent amount of time, considering they are in separate classes. Overall, though, unfortunately, Eck lost out on his first overall podium, but he did not actually lose out too much on class position. He was P1 in his class at Nürburgring last week. It was just about who overall gets that 3rd podium spot. Craig Hewlett, of course, he would have still finished 3rd in his class, but of course, you know, we're talking about the overall race, which is so often what these drivers vie for. But that's the attitude you need to take. If you can perform overall at the best level, then in your class you're going to be performing quite well. And Fox is out on track at the moment. The other HSR Motorsport branded McLaren, and also the driver who set our hot lap from earlier. He's not having too bad a season either. And Fox at the moment down in P18, 3.4 seconds behind the race leader. Well, not race leader, sorry, it's not the race yet. At the moment you can see we've got 28 drivers online at the moment. Fox jumping up to P14. Currently just outside the top 3 for his class. You can just see how much of the curb he was using on the entry into turn 1. Coming through the right-hander. At the moment, we fortunately have no contacts listed. Drivers are driving clean today. During practice, I believe we had some issues last practice at the Nürburgring, which was very interesting. Unfortunately, we couldn't cover it, but if there is an issue, we'll pick up on it this practice session. Now we are going to be interviewing one of our new drivers soon, who joined us just today actually. It's his first race here at HSR Motorsport, and I'm excited to see how he does. With 20 minutes left to go in the practice, and we still have Topenka up at the top, Hewlett second, Priatko third, Morris and Robetti rounding off the top 5. We're now watching Priatko, the navy and yellow, I'm not sure whether it is navy actually, but we'll just say blue and yellow Ferrari. Last race he did have a couple collisions, namely with Mishk, the BMW Pro-Am driver, down at the massive hairpin at turn 1, and Priatko and Christoph almost coming together. That was turn 7 and 8. Of course, that is the danger with multi-class racing. Fortunately, it's not like GT3s and GT4s together, but still having different classes within GT3 means that obviously the performance of every driver and generally in the classes are going to be, they're going to be vastly different. And so a lot of the Pro-Am and Am drivers race is going to be watching out for the professionals coming up behind. And we have had issues with blue flags. Some drivers just running their cars off the road just to get out the way. Of course, we do want to minimize the disruption to the professionals who are racing for overall lead, potentially. But at the same time, we want to keep it safe. And if you're going off track and hitting the barrier and spinning back out onto track, it is unfortunately just as dangerous. And then on the flip side of things, you get the drivers who are just so kind of involved in the race, they completely lose any spatial awareness, to put it that way. They don't realise there's a car behind them. They come over to the left. The driver behind thinks, oh, he's seen me, pulling over to the right, and then there's a crash. And I've seen it happen a couple times. It is not pretty. There are unfortunate consequences, for both parties. It is not pretty. So we hope to minimise that. If the drivers just pay attention to the blue flags, then there shouldn't be any kind of issue. Of course, every race is different. Every racer is different as well. As we see Priatko coming through the final section. Fast right-hander of Bank Sabadell, turn 12, up into turns 13, 14 and 15, and then the flat right-hander New Holland at turn 16. this is your first time joining us, welcome. The format for this week is going to be 1 hour of practice. We're now about 45 minutes in, followed by 20 minutes of qualifying, and then an hour of racing. Now that racing does involve a mandatory pit stop, which means that the drivers have to stop for the tyres and fuel, and there is no pit window, so that means strategy can also vary a lot between drivers. And we'll have our interview with one of our AM drivers now, Hosko. Hosko, welcome to the commentary box. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
It's good to hear you. Now, of course, you're joining us for the first time today. How's your reception into the server? How's everyone been treating you?
It feels nice, and yours are nice as well. And competition is high.
That's good. That's good. I'm also part of the server, so it's always good to have new people. Now, halfway into the championship, what are your expectations for the coming races?
To finish in top 5
Top
in
5.
races.
That's good. And do you think you'll be able to do that every race, or is that kind of just a one-time thing?
If I'll be consistent, I can.
Okay, but of course, since it's still your first race, you're still going to be kind of wondering how your pace matches up to the rest of the grid. I mean, at the moment, it's not looking too bad. You're currently P3 in your class, so pretty decent performance so far. Now, you've also been talking about the new wheel you recently got. How does that influence your expectations for the season?
I mean, it's a bit difficult to get used to it, but with a few more practice hours, I can get feel for it and get back on the pace.
Indeed. Practice is important, isn't it?
Of
Cool.
course.
But yeah, I wouldn't keep you any longer. It was just a quick chat where there's only 15 minutes left in practice, so I'll let you get back to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too, sir. Good luck. That was Hosko, currently in P16. One of our very recent additions to the grid. He's yeah, he literally joined, I think it was yesterday or earlier this week, and got signed up very, very recently. Hosko in the 496 this season. Now, of course, he's also at a points deficit. He has not been able to, he did not participate in the first 2 races of the season. So he will have to make that up at some point throughout the season as well. At the moment, 12 minutes left in practice, and we have 29 drivers here with us today. At the moment, 25 of them have set a lap. Christoph bringing up the rear. The 150. Priadko now up into P2 actually. He's managed to just sneak past Hewlett in P3. 0.417 seconds off of Topinka, as opposed to Hewlett, who's 0.465. Oh, and that's Topinka setting an even faster lap. Of course, during qualifying, we don't know what could happen, and race pace, as we've said, it's not necessarily representative of how the race will go. But at the moment, Topinka more than half a second ahead of the grid. And we've seen this kind of dominance before, haven't we? But what we haven't seen is Priadko actually challenge for the top 3. It's pretty good to see that battle. of course, we've got some other drivers who have been fighting for P2 over the past 2 races. As we've mentioned, Hewlett and Rebecci, P2 and P3 respectively at the Nürburgring. And then Dixon and Hearn are both drivers that have also finished on the podium. They finished P2 and P3 at Silverstone. And those 2 drivers were actually very closely matched throughout the entire race. Oh, and there's contact. Oh, dear. And there's carnage at turn 2. And that is not good. We might have our first opportunity to use the replay. Let's have a look at that contact. Coming to the left hand, oh, and just a bit of oversteer there. And that was unfortunately what happened there. That right-hander, that kind of sequence, that left-right sequence, is quite a challenging one if you don't get the line right. You want to be using as much curb as you can to carry all the speed in. But if you're driving one of these McLarens, they tend to be very grippy on the front end, especially on the throttle. As we follow Nagy at the moment, who was the unfortunate recipient of the oversteer at turn 2. In that last incident we just covered. And that is unfortunate. As he comes through turn 5 now. Nagy down in P24, one of our AM drivers. And the order still stands in terms of the top 5 drivers. Now, what happened during that last incident, it seemed, like I said, it just seemed like Nagy just had a little bit of oversteer, and Guidelin was just the unfortunate driver right behind who had no time to respond. And then, of course, with all that just around the corner, Priatko came in, absolutely flying through the corner, and also he just couldn't stop in time, couldn't react, and he collected both drivers. As far as I know, there won't be any penalty for them in practice. It won't make sense to try and dock some positions during practice after all, but if we do notice some suspicious or unsportsmanlike behaviour during practice, we will of course, stewards will of course, they'll address it at some point. But hopefully that will never happen. Of course, most of the time it is just pure mistakes, it's just human nature. But when we notice a pattern, then yeah, then there's going to be an issue. But fortunately we haven't had to deal with anything like that so far, and we'll hopefully leave it like that for the rest of the season. Now about 31 drivers in the server at the moment. You can see the bottom 5 drivers on the left of your screen have not set a lap yet. Among them we've got Hearn and Ostricharts, 2 pro drivers who are worth watching. Or Nagy's taken out a couple of those barriers. Sorry, they're not barriers. I don't know what to call them, because they're like soft blocks, polystyrene blocks, but polystyrene would just fly away. I have no idea what you'd call them. And I think we've just had an incident further up ahead. Just a yellow flag. There's nothing listed, so nothing serious. But as I was saying about Hearn and Ostricharts, Hearn, as we've spoken about before, he finished P3 just behind Dixon at the Silverstone race. It was only 1.5 seconds behind Dixon, so there's definitely a close rivalry between the two. And now the question is, how will that rivalry how will that rivalry effect. Oh, and that's Nagy again, turn 2. Off the track, keeps it out of the barriers, fortunately. But that's Nagy again, turn 2 and 3. Oh, those tyres are going to be absolutely shot. Of course, overheating every time he spins out. We'll go on board with Ostricharts now. Have a look at his car. As I was saying about the tyres, you know, we talked about that right at the start of practice, didn't we? You know, you put it too hot, or the track's too hot, and the tyres just aren't gripping, or they just slip around and they're all sticky, and yeah, it's just tough. Once they overheat, it's hard to regain that heat, and there's only so much you can do with the brake ducts. And of course, at the same time, you don't want to be providing too much air to your brakes, because then your brakes are cold. It's a delicate balance to get, and something that the pros are kind of, that's the things they start to worry about. For the AM and Pro-Am drivers though, something they will have to work on in the future. And at the moment, it's just pace and keeping up with everyone else in their class. And this first section of the track is quite busy. We said we're on board with, or we're following Ostricharts at the moment, who's following Broom in the Porsche. And I think both of these liveries are new this race. Ostricharts has been running a white, blue and black livery, quite similar to Topinka. We haven't actually seen a lot of... Oh, actually Broom was doing a grey and red livery, wasn't he? We saw plenty of action with him last race, going defensive over his positions. And he had plenty of contact with Rucroft and Bubbins. But here's Ostricharts in the gold and green BMW. We've seen some consistent performance from him throughout the season. With 3 minutes remaining in practice. And Ostricharts is about to set his first lap of the race weekend. And P13 overall, which puts him P11 in his class, that being Pro. Let's have a look at Hearn's time though. I'm interested to see where he has ended up, or whether he is still out. No, Hearn hasn't managed to set a lap yet. Neither has Caldognetto, who won his previous race class at the Nürburgring. And we continue to follow Ostricharts through the fast left-hander, looking at turn 6 into turn 7 and 8. You can see how much Kirby's taking in comparison to the hot lap we saw from Fox. He's really using as much as he can. As we were saying earlier, top driver at the moment is Topinka. He's really the kind of headline of today's race. Should he win, that's going to be a hat-trick of victories. He will then have won more races than anyone else, obviously, in the server. 3 race wins in a row. He'll then have won half of the season's races. No one has been able to catch up to him. He's been super consistent, he's been clean, he hasn't been involved in any issues yet, times keep tumbling down in practice. Ostrichart's in P5 now, under a second off of Topinka, who himself has managed to improve his time to a 1:43.8, which is really quite impressive. And those are very, very quick lap times indeed from the Czech. Rebecci, in the meantime, has managed to take P2. He's 0.3 seconds ahead of Hewlett now, and Hewlett is barely, he is 5,000ths of a second ahead of Priadko in P3. 0.005 seconds ahead. That is nuts. That is incredible. That small gap. And free practice ends then with a timer going. Topinka at the top then, followed by Rebecci, Hewlett, Priadko, Ostricharts, Morris and Chard. Guidolin now joining top 10, followed by Rodriguez and Eck. Those two last drivers in the Porsche and McLaren being the Pro-Am drivers. As the transition from practice to qualifying happens now. And we will be back in just a moment. And qualifying is underway then. 20 minutes to set the fastest lap these drivers can. Currently following Eck in the pink and red McLaren. He had a particularly good performance last race, as we said earlier, holding off a rampaging Craig Hewlett. Was absolutely dominating during the race. Eck in the Pro-Am category. Coming around it to start his first lap of qualifying. terms of qualifying pace, Ek so far has been on top. He's managed to secure P1 in his class for each race, both at Silverstone and Nürburgring. He's qualified on top in his class. So now we'll see if he can pull off a hat-trick of P1 starts, so to speak. Coming through turn 5, Siat into the kink, left-hander up ahead. Now of course his main rival is likely going to be Mishk in a BMW. Oh, and that's Ek invalidating his first lap, and he's off. Yes, Ek's main rival is going to be Mishk in the blue, purple and white BMW. Mishk has qualified 3rd and 2nd, respectively, at Silverstone and the Nürburgring. So Mishk might be looking for his first P1 qualifying position in the class. In the meantime, Ek then will have to redo his lap time. The only driver to invalidate so far. In terms of other drivers out on track at the moment, Hosco and Fox are out doing their laps, as well as Christoph, Rodriguez, Dieringer and some other drivers, but we are starting to see lap times coming in now. Let's follow Dieringer, one of our new drivers, signed up just today. And these drivers are starting to set their first laps. And before we get too involved in qualifying, we hope to have another interview from a pro driver. In the meantime, we continue to follow Dieringer, currently the top Pro-Am driver, out of about 4 having set their laps. And he seems to be the only driver taking a kind of one of the cars we don't generally see in the championship. But now we head into our interview. Mikhail Topinka, welcome to the commentary box. Thank you for being here.
Hi there.
So, you've had perfect races so far during the season, finishing first in both races from pole. What are your expectations for this race?
So, from the last race, I was just missing 2 competitive drivers, and I'm sure that this race will be more interesting because the last race was first from the start and first to the finish, and this track is more tricky and it's also more technical than the last one. And as you can see, there's a higher temperature, so you will get faster wearing off on the tires, so everything can happen.
Yeah, indeed. And this is one of those tracks where qualifying is super important. Like you said, it's just a very technical track, so overtaking is not necessarily one of the most common things we'll see during the race. Now, last race, you finished 30 seconds ahead of the drivers behind. What do you think sets you apart from the grid? What gives you the edge over the guys in P2 and P3?
I'm not sure what you are meaning with the edge,
but yeah, what kind of sets you apart? What lets you finish P1 instead of P2 or P3?
Yeah, so the thing is that for me, when I saw that I'm getting few seconds gap after the 3 or 4 laps.
Mhm.
I was just thinking about the strategy which I should just start providing, and the best strategy is just keeping the same consistency for every lap. So
Indeed.
the most important thing is just avoid the mistakes
Mhm.
and just stay focused on every corner, on every braking zone, and just making sure that I will just stay on the track and avoid anything off tracks and all this stuff. Yeah.
Indeed, indeed, and that's kind of the goal of every driver on grid at the moment, isn't it? Now,
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
sure about it because for me it was a little bit advantage because I was not forced to focus on any other drivers because I had just big gap and it was just hot lap after the hot lap, so it was really nice.
Indeed, indeed, yeah. You didn't have that pressure from the drivers behind.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Cool. And at the moment, as we've said, you're kind of the driver to beat at the moment. Is there a particular driver who worries you in terms of championship position, and why?
Yeah, so I have some favorites,
Mhm.
and there's also the Rebecca,
Mhm.
and I'm sure that he was switched from the Pro AM to the Pro from
Yep.
the last race because he was really fast, and as you know, there was the Craig
Mhm.
from with the McLaren, and he's really fast. So if he has some space for fighting, so he will catch me, and he don't need to focus on his own position, so he will just focus on my position and start attacking. I think it will be really difficult. And also we have a new driver here with
Yep.
the Lamborghini. He's from the USA.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if I will spell it correctly, but it's a Diaringer, I think,
Yep.
something
Yep.
like that. And I know him from the past because he's driving in this car in real life, and
Ah, interesting.
I'm sure that he will make some really nice. He will provide a really nice driving technique because this car is really hard to handle it.
Indeed, indeed. So, thank you so much for joining me. I apologise, it's a bit short, but we don't want to keep you. We're already halfway into qualifying, so good luck with your race, and
Thanks.
give us a show.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Topinka, our championship leader, currently having not set a lap yet, but he's on his way. And you heard it from the leader himself, Dieringer, in P2 at the moment. A real-life driver racing that exact car. So he's going to know that car inside out. Of course, there's all the actual kind of race, how do you put it, the actual race experience here at Barcelona in that car. So in terms of car control, like Topinka was saying, he's just going to know that car so well. But sim racing is something else from real life racing, and that's something that's not appreciated by many people, unfortunately, or not many people realise that, actually. They think there's quite an easy switch between the two. For some people it is, but for some there's definitely a marked difference. Of course, you know, Max Verstappen being the Formula One champion at the moment, who does sim racing and is good at it. And some other notable names, Jimmy Broadbent, he was a sim racer as well, getting into real life racing. Julio Almeida, he's also out there at the moment doing some real life racing, coming from sim racing. So there's a lot of overlap, but there's not necessarily they're not necessarily going to be the same. As we see the drivers, some of the pro drivers now, starting their qualifying laps, and they are taking it slow, trying to give themselves the pocket to qualify in. Now with Rebecci. As I think I mentioned, Rebecci is one of the faster drivers. He finished P3 last race. So Rebecci is a driver to keep an eye on, as well as Craig Hewlett. However, Rebecci actually finished P7 in Silverstone. However, his qualifying pace seems fairly strong. And the pros setting their lap times now. And this is where we're going to start seeing the 43s, 42s potentially. That's been optimistic. Yes, Rebecci actually, his record is P10 and P5, rounds 1 and 2 respectively. So he can still improve his qualifying pace. And in terms of race pace, he's definitely not lacking in that department, making up 3 positions in each race, approximately. As he comes across the line, first pro driver to set a lap time. Actually, that might be Topinka or Dixon, actually. Rebecci across the line to take pole position. Rebecci, P1. Of course, now the rest of the pro drivers are coming across the line. So we'll wait for those drivers to finish their lap times before we start pulling some numbers out of thin air. And we do actually have some contact listed. Let's have a quick look at that. Apologies. Give us one moment. This was the issue. Oh dear. Just lost it on turn 3. And unfortunately collected Christoph as he was going through. Let's follow Ostrichart's, shall we? In P4 at the moment. Ostrichart's in the pro category. Last race, he qualified just outside the top 3 in his class. And during the race, we saw some good progress from him as well. And poor qualifying at Silverstone, actually, P9. I'm sure he's going to continue looking for his first podium of the season. But he just doesn't seem to have had the pace over the last couple races. That gold and green BMW coming through the long right hander of turn 3. And we actually have one of our newer drivers, Merlino, another Mega Motorsport Italia driver in a Porsche now. He's qualified P6. This is his first race of the season. He's 0.8 seconds off of P1 driver Dixon at the moment. Dixon on pole overall. And Merlino then P6 overall, P5 in his class. In the red, white and blue Porsche. I don't generally say Porsche, I don't know why I said that. Just needed extra syllables, I guess. As I said, this is his first race. It will be good to see where he finishes. Coming just across the finish line now. Where will he end up? Does he start from P7 or does he improve in his position? Coming across the line now. Esmeralina up into P6 overall, but still P7. Now this is actually very interesting because Dixon at the moment is on pole and Topinka's just set his lap time. He's improved over Rebecci, so it's Dixon, Topinka, Rebecci at top 3 overall and in the pro class. Now that is very interesting indeed. And Topinka did not mention Dixon from our first race. Dixon was actually alongside at turn 1 at Silverstone. That was about all that he saw of the driver in the Aston Martin. Dixon with a 144.0, and Topinka again, look at that gap, 0.005 seconds, and Hewlett is also 0.083. Let's actually go on board with Topinka now, because this is exciting. Both Dixon and Topinka are out to set their laps. Topinka in P2 at the moment, looking for his 3rd pole of the season. Now, will he take it though? That is the question. We only have a minute left in qualifying, so if he wants to get that lap in, it better be quick. Coming into the hairpin now. Turn 10. 11 through 12, the long right-hander, bunks up Adele. Through Europe car, turn 13 coming up. Does he have the pace to take his 3rd pole of the season? Will it be a hat-trick of poles? As we said, qualifying position is so important here when it comes to final race position. Here he comes, round the final corner. Is it pole? Yes, it is. Topinka takes pole by 0.3 seconds off of Dixon. Now, will Dixon be able to defend? I'm not sure he'll have time though. We're running into the last couple seconds. The moment that thing strikes 0, we'll have to take another break between qualifying and race. It won't be long though, only about 2 minutes long. There's Dixon coming to a stop. Topinka still doing his lap. And this looks like it's the final order then. Topinka, Dixon and Hewlett, top 3 for the pro class. Followed by Eck, Dieringer and Rodriguez, P10, P14 and P16 for the Pro-Am class. And then Jackson, Bubbins and Pfeiffer, top 3 for our AM class. Now Pfeiffer has been one of our top drivers in the AM class, but Jackson and Bubbins are new arrivals to the battle for the top positions in the AM class. So that should make for a very interesting race between those 3 drivers. At the moment then, 33 drivers. Only 29 have qualified and the qualifying is over. Just waiting for the last couple cars to finish their lap times. Take a quick break between now and the race where we'll be having non-stop action. So please be patient and we'll be back shortly. here we are then, the race start. At the moment, looking to be a very interesting race. Qualifying, came right down to the wire with this man here, Topinka, who qualified pole for the 3rd time this season. Further down, we've got Dixon P2 and Priatko actually, while we were away on the break, managed to secure a last lap P3. That man in the blue and yellow Ferrari taking P3. Now that's only for the Pro class. P1 for the Pro-Am class, Eck in that purple, pinkish McLaren, followed by Dieringer in the Lambo, and then Rodriguez with a surprise P3, that multicoloured Porsche. And then for the Am class, Jackson taking his first P1 of the season for his class, Bubbins P2 and Pfeiffer P3. Now Pfeiffer, of course, he's been on the podium all season. He's having a battle with Ty and one other driver for the overall lead of the season. But 30 seconds then before the start of our formation lap, as we look at Topinka then, our championship leader and pole starter here at Barcelona.
10 seconds.
You can hear the race engineers counting down. The cars come on. And it's going to be the mad dash down to turn 1. This is going to be very interesting indeed. Here we go. Formation lap. This is where the drivers have very little time to warm up their tyres and brakes to hit turn 1. And let's have a look at the action coming around the final corner for the start of round 3. The green flag waves at Barcelona. Topinka still down the inside. Dixon tucks behind. 3 wide at some parts of the circuit. Coming into turn 1. They're all battling for position. Further back, Priatko's losing out. He's lost out to Hewlett and he's gone wide as well. We're seeing some dust in the background, but no debris. And that's Rebecci going wide. That's the chance for Merlino to come in now. And Merlino, unfortunately, just couldn't make it. Now he's under attack from Ostricharts. And there seems to be lots of action further back. But is that Dixon ahead of Topinka? Dixon in P1. Dixon's managed to overtake Topinka for P1. Our new race leader. This is something we haven't seen all season long. Now the question is, will he stay ahead or will Topinka take back his lead? Great stuff at the start of the race. It's Dixon, Topinka, then Hewlett, then Priatko, Rebecci coming into turn 10 for the first time. And Hewlett is actually very close. He's only 0.4 seconds off. Hewlett only 0.3 seconds as they come into the chicane. And conclude the first lap of our 1 hour long race. Dixon out ahead, our new race leader. And he's managed to get ahead of Topinka in the first lap. Further down, the pros at the bottom of the order. Chard coming up on Urso now, the McLaren, looking to make a move on the Ferrari into turn 1 potentially. Yes, there it is, a little peak, but just not close enough to make the move. And this is the battle for P12. Sorry, P10. Battle for the top 10 positions. And it is looking to be a very interesting race indeed, with Dixon ahead of Topinka. That is something we haven't seen all season long. However, Something that's going to be occurring close now is Ostricharts on Morris, and Eck right behind, also looking to make a move. Oh no! And that's... Sorry, the grids are just going all over the place. Some sort of connection issue. But where's Dixon gone? Dixon has dropped down the order. Where is Dixon? Dixon's just disappeared. Dixon then seems to have left. I don't know where Dixon is. Dixon has completely disappeared off the leaderboard. Yeah, that looks like Dixon has disconnected or something. Dixon, who was P1, drops out of the race to give Topinka the lead. And that is not good news. Hewlett 0.3 seconds off of Topinka for the race lead. And that is really unfortunate for Dixon. What has happened? For the back, it's Chard and Urso. The McLaren coming up on the Ferrari now, 0.2 seconds off. The battle for P9. And looks like Ostricharts managed to get past... No, sorry, they've just all gone up a position. It's Chard in the black Aston Martin, sorry, McLaren, to make a move on the Ferrari ahead. But that gap has opened up. And further down, Woodkit, P14, looking for a move on Keldogneto at some point, but he's coming under an attack from Oliveira now, in that white and blue Ferrari. Both new liveries we've seen, as everyone hits the gravel there on the exit. And Oliveira having to get defensive. Oh, and that's Woodkit wide, and Oliveira down the inside. Oliveira gets by on the hairpin. Looks like Woodkit outbroke himself into turn 10. Unfortunate for Woodkit. He's dropping down the order. He's dropped one position. Oliveira up 10 positions overall. But could this be his chance to come back? Up at top though, Hewlett on Topinka will come back to the battle between Chard and... No, sorry, that was Woodkit and Oliveira. But this is Hewlett now on Topinka. Only 0.2 seconds. It's the closest gap we've had all season long. Today is the race for new things. Dixon took the lead earlier on from Topinka. Unfortunately, we did not see the move. We were looking further down the grid. And Hewlett's managing to keep pace with Topinka at the moment. Will we see a move down the straights? Maybe not this one, but the pit straight, maybe if he can keep it close. Coming into turn 10, La Casa. And there are the two McLarens of the leaders, P1 and P2. Priatko's managed to stay ahead. He's managed to regain P3. We've seen lots of action further down. Ostricharts, Merlino and Eck. These four drivers. Eck is the only Pro-Am driver in the group. And he's looking around the outside into the chicane. And it's close racing coming through the final section. Turn 16 now, the flat right-hander. This is close racing in the mid-pack. P6, P7, P8 and P9. P10 Chard as well. This is Ostricharts, only 0.2 seconds off of Merlino. Kind of looks to the inside, but he's too far back. Now, of course, the danger here is these guys start fighting too hard and they just start falling behind, and the gap between the drivers ahead and this group is going to keep growing. It's close racing between these guys at the moment. Ostricharts in P7, Merlino P6, Eck, sorry, P8, Urso P9 and Chard P10. Mid-pack group. At the moment, Eck is our only Pro-Am driver in the group. And Merlino's starting to catch up to Morris now as well. It's amazing what a bit of motivation can do with that BMW behind you. But Ostricharts only 0.1 seconds now. Is he going to have a look? Not now. Oh, but there's contact by the looks of it. And this is very close indeed. Ostricharts right on the back of Merlino, making sure he knows he's there, applying the pressure. Meanwhile, Morris is falling behind. Merlino now only half a second behind him. And Eck is also close up behind the BMW. All sorts of battles here in the mid-pack. 10 minutes into the race. But now the gaps start to grow between the drivers. And Eck has fallen behind slightly. He's under threat from Urso now in the Ferrari. Oh, but Urso's had a horrible run through turn 2. And Chard is looking for a move into turn 4, potentially at Repsol. Is this his moment? No, he's too far back. But the mid-pack then are closely contested. And there's a huge battle now for P24. Nagy in the McLaren and Mellet. Nagy's gone wide, Mellet round the outside. Wraith is looking to take opportunity, and there's contact. Wraith down the inside. Through goes Wraith in turn 3, but he's not got the move done yet. Coming into turn 4 now, and now he's got the move done, and Nagy's gone wide, and that allows Mellet to pull alongside now for turn 5. The green Porsche, but unfortunately his exit was not good enough. Wraith then up 2 positions. And this is all the way down in P24. And apologies, that was Bubbins coming through. Bubbins getting past both Nagy and Mellet. The closest gap at the moment is Urso Chard. P9 and P10 coming down the main straight. And Chard's having a look to the inside, but again, just too far back. Further down the grid, P17 is Hearn. It's only 0.3 seconds off Dieringer. We were chatting about earlier. A real-life driver. And Hearn seems to be struggling this race compared to where he was previously. He's dropping down the order. Brum, there's a massive battle here for P20. Brum in the Porsche, and we've got Zaniewski, Brum, Divitini and Maris. Maris up ahead in the Aston Martin. Oh, and that's Brum falling behind by the looks of it. He's lost a place to Maris. So Maris and Zaniewski in the Aston Martins. And that's Maris in the red Aston Martin. Looking to make a position on Zaniewski. This pack down in P20. And Divitini's just fallen behind. We just about caught the action right at the start, but here is Maris's opportunity down the inside into turn 9, Kampser, and it looks like he's made it stick. Now Zaniewski is under pressure from Brum, but Brum is not the one he should be worrying about. Oh, and there's contact. There's cars all over the hairpin. And that's Brum up a position, Zaniewski down 2. And right in the middle of that is Divitini, the Pro-Am driver, gaining 3 positions. He's up into P20 now. All sorts of things happening there at turn 10. And Brum then, P21, Divitini, P20. Looks like Keldog-Neto is having a battle with Woodkit now, down in P12, P13. Sorry. Keldog-Neto making it past Woodkit through turn 3. Coming into turn 5 now, the left-hander. He's gone for a slightly wider line, but he maintains position. Keldog-Neto into P13. Oh, but here he comes, down the inside of Jackson, P12 now, but he's gone wide, and looks like Jackson is losing out to Woodkit as well. Close racing here through turn 9, down the straight. Oh, and they've all gone wide. This is going to be interesting. Jackson having a look down the inside, but he's too far back, and now Rodriguez is looking to get involved in the Porsche, just behind them. And Keldog-Neto taking a really narrow line through there. Does that mean that Jackson will have a better run through turn 12? Apparently not yet. But Keldog-Neto is now leading a train of cars forming up behind him. Jackson, Woodkit, Rodriguez, Hearn and Dieringer all starting to form a long train behind him. This is down in P12, Keldog-Neto leading the train. There's all sorts of things happening down at turn 10 this race. All sorts of chaos going on. Meanwhile, up at the top, things are staying fairly clean. Topinka still 2 seconds ahead of Hewlett. He's managed to open that gap now, and he's into his rhythm. Topinka, after an interesting race start, Dixon managed to get past at the start, but he has completely disappeared from the race. Dixon, by the looks of it, has disconnected. So then Topinka P1, Hewlett P2, Priadko P3, Rebecci P4, and looks like there's just been a change of position between Ostricharts and Morris for P5. Just missed it. This pack from P4 to about P9, Chard, they've all managed to make improvements on their race pace so far. Meanwhile, Chard down in P9, looking to make a move on Eck, down the pit straight. He's 0.3 seconds. Coming into turn 1, but he's still a bit too far to make a move, but he's down the outside now, and Eck defends, but there's nothing he can do, and Eck just lets him past. Chard up into P8. And Chard has managed to make 3 positions so far during the race. However, the driver that's made the most positions is Hearn. He's made up 16 positions from where he started. Hearn now in P15, pulling off Woodkit and Dieringer. And now the gaps start forming. And let's have a look at what has happened over the past couple minutes. Seems to be a huge collision. 3 minutes into the race. We're now 20 minutes into the race. So we'll have a look at some of the replays. This is right at the race start. And one of the Omega Motorsport Italia cars going wide there. That was right at the start. Then further on, we've got contact between Oliveira by the looks of it. This is Divitini down in P20. Have a look at the Oliveira contact. There's Oliveira down by the chicane. Oh, and a tap by the driver behind. Unfortunate timing. That was down at the chicane, down at turns 13 and 14, 6 minutes in. Let's see if we can get any... No, there's no damage on the back of Oliveira's bumper, fortunately. Up in P8 is Chard. 0.3 seconds off of Merlino. Could this be potential gains for the driver up in P8? He's made 3 positions so far from where he started down in P11. He's still a bit far, so we'll be seeing some moves a little later on in the race, I believe. Here he comes, 0.3 seconds off of Eck. Sorry, Eck is 0.6, Chard is 0.3 off of Merlino. And there's all sorts of things happening on circuit at the moment, so many times to keep track of. Fortunately, we will be missing a lot of the action. This is Chard getting right up behind Merlino, out onto the straight. Will there be a look into turn 1? We've seen Chard try and have a look down there before, but nothing happened. And yes, he's just too far back. Meanwhile, down in P16, this group of drivers are still battling for the higher positions. I believe it's P13, led by Hare now, and Woodkit seems to be gaining slightly on Jackson. Coming into turn 1. And is there a move from Woodkit? He looks to the inside and he keeps the line, but ultimately nothing happened there. And we are seeing our first drivers into the pits. Dieringer pitting right now. And Woodkit is still 0.2 seconds off Jackson, but he seems to be falling behind. He seems to be losing positions. He's already lost 2 positions throughout the race. And is that a slow Rucroft? It's a lapped Rucroft, unfortunately. And the gaps are back open again. Meanwhile, Chard, seems to be a huge battle here. Chard, Eck and Merlino. Looks like Eck managed to get ahead of Chard. And there Chard goes down into turns 13, leading up to 14 and 15. That was a very opportunistic move down there. Don't see many of those. Down into turn 13, Europe car. You can see Merlino now going into the pits. And this is now P7, the battle for P7. Urso is also looking to get involved. Chard, Eck and Urso fighting for P7 overall. Now Eck is the only Pro-Am driver within the top 10. So he's managed to do quite well. Urso in the background there is falling behind. As we see more drivers pit. Merlino actually being the only driver up at the top having pitted. P13 now, Kyle Dognito and Rodriguez having a go. Here's Woodkit though from P14, he's pulling alongside. Looks like Rodriguez is having all sorts of issues with contact today. The multicolour Porsche having to defend from Woodkit now into turn 4. He manages to stay ahead after going wide at turn 3. You can see Hearn and the Porsche ahead, Kildognito in the McLaren. And yeah, the gaps are really starting to open up now. At the same time, The overtakes are just so quick here. It's almost impossible to keep track of what's happening across the grid. Rebecci up in P4 looking to take P3 away from Priadko. This is for the final podium position. Overall, here's Rebecci around the outside. They have an jostle and he's down the inside into the final corner. There's most definitely contact as they come onto the straight. And that's Rebecci up into P3, but he's still not got the move done. Coming down the pit straight, they're side by side coming into turn 1. And Priadko looks like he's had a slightly better exit. Who breaks the latest into turn 1? They're still side by side, and it's Priadko who moves ahead. Priadko barely holding on to his position, and Rebecci says, I want to get past, because Ostrichat is starting to catch up now. Rebecci going wide slightly, 0.2 seconds off. And that was some close racing between Rebecci and Priadko. Very close racing. I'm sure we'll be able to have a look at what happened there earlier. But right now, Rebecci still just over, or just under half a second off of Priadko. It's putting him under pressure. And last time we saw Priadko spin out was because he was the one putting pressure on the driver behind. He was looking to make a move. But now he's under pressure from Rebecci. Rebecci looking to make moves. P4 now, 0.2. We're back right where we came to start looking at these two. Oh, and there he goes, the dive down the inside again. Oh, and there's contact. That's Priadko spun out, and Ostrichat gains a position. And that's Priadko losing place after place after place. Now down into P8. That's gone terribly wrong for Priadko again. And that was a Rebecci trying to make moves down the last section of the track, turn 14. He saw he could get in there last lap, and then just decided to go for it this lap, and this is what's happened. Really unfortunate for Priadko then. Let's have a look at that contact again, because that was most definitely not clean overtaking. And here we go, coming into turns 13, he just dives down and, oh, yeah, just clips the rear. Really unfortunate for Priadko then, who's down to P8 now. Fortunately, there's not much damage to his car that we can see. That left rear panel looking intact. Oh, but Priadko then, he's lost a little bit of his pace now. Of course, there's the psychological impact of that thing still hanging around. Really unfortunate for Priadko, down in P8 now. That was a truly unfortunate incident. Meanwhile, Chard though, he's looking to make a move on Morris. This is the battle for P5. And coming into the main straight, Chard seems to be carrying a little more speed as Hewlett pits in the background. And Chard 0.2 seconds now. Will we see a move into turn 1? We've seen many dummies coming into here from Chard, but none this time. And Chard is on an absolute mission today. He started P11 and now he's up to P5 overall. He's made 6 positions over the course of the race so far. And he is looking for another position on Morris now. 0.2 seconds as they come into turn 5 now. Seat. Meanwhile, we're seeing more drivers pit now. Priatko and Hearn both going into the pits, as well as Bubbins. But we are currently following Chad. He's looking to make a move on Morris, but this is coming into turn 10. Here's the dive, and he's flashing his headlights. He wants to work together, or he just knows he's faster. But this is Morris with the switchback, still around the outside. Potential contact there. And Morris needs to watch out for Eck now, who's just behind waiting to make a move. And Morris down to P5 now. And Morris then into the pit lane. And that was a move from Chad, who was kind of debating it coming into turn 10. 777. There was indeed contact between him and Morris coming into the overtake into turn 10. Let's have a look at that overtake again. Oh no, apologies, this was coming through the right-hander. Just a little bit of contact there. And this is still Chad in P3 now, but all the drivers are starting to pit. You can see Topinka, Morris, Jackson. Looks like we have a first drive-through penalty. Oliveira down in P12. Looks like he's had a... Sorry, that was the wrong driver, Topinka. I'm confused. Sorry, it is Oliveira who has the drive-through penalty. Oliveira in P10. He has a drive-through penalty, so that's likely something to do with pit entry. And that's going to set his race back even more. He's gone up 14 positions. He's one of the drivers who's made the most ground over the course of the race. But unfortunately, due to the drive-through, he'll have to give up all those positions. As the drivers start to come into the pits, we're on board now with Topinka. Of course, he's going to be stuck behind traffic now. And last time we saw them, Hewlett was only about 2 seconds off of Topinka. So as Topinka loses time, Hewlett gains time. But Hewlett is actually just behind 4 seconds. And closing. So this could be Hewlett's chance to make up time. Topinka really stuck behind Maris now, but Maris peels into the pits and Topinka then has fresh air to continue his rampage and his quest for a third win in a row of the season. And a load of drivers coming into the pits now. Let's see if we can get some more contact sorted out. We've got contact listed between 323 and 422. Let's have a quick look at that. This was Jackson and Woodcote. Oh, and just on the exit, that little love tap. Jackson now in P22. He has plenty of space both ahead and behind him. Jackson has been losing position so far. Started P16, so he's lost 6 positions from where he started. So not such a great race for Jackson, unfortunately, but of course all the drivers are starting to pit now, so we can't actually define how far ahead or how far behind he is in comparison to the rest of the grid. contact between 65 and 96. This was Zanussi. Whoa, I think he gave Bubbins a little punt there. Unfortunate stuff. 4, car number 65, Bubbins. He's also been losing out all race. 5 positions down from where he started. And the final couple drivers are making their pit stops now. Brum in P14, the top 3 also doing their pit stops. Let's have a look at Priatko, Merlino and Ostricharts now. This is the battle for P7. All 3 of these drivers have pitted. So Ostricharts then managed to get ahead. Oh, and there's contact! And there's huge! There's a huge coming together there at 10-4. And that's Ostricharts and Merlino both off the track. What has happened? Very unfortunate circumstances for the BMW and the Porsche driver. I have no idea what happened there. But meanwhile, Topinka is getting caught up behind the traffic. Rodriguez, who still needs to pit. Meanwhile, Hewlett's managed to close the gap to 2 seconds now. This traffic is really affecting Topinka's pace. If he's not careful, Craig is going to come back for round 2. And Topinka now within 2 seconds of Topinka. Meanwhile, there's a battle down here by Zanussi. Again, contact between him and Bubbins down for P22. These two are fighting viciously. They've both pitted. So this is for position. But what I don't understand is this is between a Pro-Am and an Am driver. The Aston Martin and the Ferrari. And we saw Zanussi and Bubbins earlier have some contact. So these two are probably not really favouring each other at the moment. And that's Zanussi going wide at turn 5. He goes off at Siat. And that gives Bubbins now time to breathe. I'm seeing a drop from Rodriguez, who's in the pits, which makes sense, I suppose. Morris, 0.4 seconds off of Eck. And we're still pretty much where we left off. Chad, then Eck, then Morris, then Urso. Morris is back where he started pretty much at the start of the race. But looks like we do have some more penalties to hand out. Eck being one of them. Eck's gotten a drive-through penalty. That pink McLaren, he's got a drive-through penalty. And the Ferrari in the background there, Urso, has got a stop-and-go 30 seconds penalty as well. And the penalties are starting to come in now. Looks like we just missed Morris gaining a position on Eck. Eck losing out, and he still needs to make the pit stop. And that is unfortunate for the McLaren driver. And that's Urso going into the pits to serve his stop and go. And Eck needs to pit within the next 2 or 3 laps in order to not get an even bigger penalty. Oh, and there's that's a Mellet moving over for the drivers to come through. Very unfortunate then for Eck. He's been running such a good race, and then thanks to the drive-through he'll have to give up a couple positions. Question is, will he come out ahead of Dieringer, who's down in P13, who's P2 in his class at the moment? that remains to be seen. That's Urso rejoining P21 after his stop and go. P20, apologies. The Ferrari driver, he's actually last in his class, lowest placing pro driver. Meanwhile, Hearn's making moves on Merlino. The two Porsches are going to have a battle. You can see Merlino taking a lot of curb. This is Hearn's chance down the straight. He'll get the job done before they even hit the apex, I bet. And yes, it's got way more speed coming past the pits. This is for P8 now. The two pro drivers. And Hearn is making moves. He's up 23 positions from where he started. This is a man on a mission. Merlino is not necessarily giving up his position that easily. They're side by side coming into turn 4, Repsol. And there's a close battle here between Merlino and Hearn. I think there's some contact there. And it's Merlino back up into P8. And Merlino says, "You're not coming past now." Hearn then struggling to get up into P8. Coming through turn 9 now. Hearn has got a little more speed by the looks of it. Coming into the straight just before we hit the hairpin, we'll have a little bit of slipstream. Oh, and he looks to the inside, but Hearn is just too far back. And Hearn is only 0.3 seconds off of Merlino now. He'll be looking to make another move into this last section. We saw how much sausage curb Merlino was taking through here. Obviously, Hearn's going to have the slipstream out onto the main straight now. And he tucks behind, he's 0.3 seconds off. But he's not going to be there in time to make a move before turn 1. Unless he makes a desperate dive to the inside. But there is no desperate dive. And this is down in P9, Hearn. Looking to make a position, but he's struggling. He's only 0.2 seconds off of Merlino now, though. They come through turns 4 and 5. He's just waiting for an error from Merlino. We saw Merlino take loads of sausage curb through turns 13, 14 and 15. So we know he's under pressure. And we know he doesn't necessarily like that pressure. We saw a little tap on the brakes from Merlino through there though. Hearn looks like he's got more speed. He's carrying more speed through turn 9. If he can keep it clean and use the slipstream to his advantage, he'll be able to make a turn. He'll be able to make a move into turn 10, but he's too far back to do that. And there's still the same separation. Meanwhile, Chad and Morris are having a battle for P4. Priadco, Chad and Morris. Chad having to defend from Morris now. He's taking a really narrow line. You can see Morris is using that slipstream as much as he can. He's going around the outside. And is that Chad? No, Chad still maintains his position. Taking a very defensive line there. And this is the battle for P4. Or more precisely, P5. And we're back to Hearn and Merlino down into turn 1. This is Merlino going the outside line, and that's Hearn down into, or sorry, up into P8. Oh, there's contact! Hearn and Molino come together at turn 2. That has gone awfully wrong for both drivers. And I believe Molino's just completely left the lobby as well. Molino has just completely left the game. We can only speculate as to why, whether that's rage or I don't know, we'll have to see. And then down to P11. Let's have a look at that incident again. This is through turn 1. Oh yeah, and he just tapped the inside, didn't he? Really unfortunate for Hearn. P11 now. He has still made good progress though, 20 positions up from where he started. As he was trying to make a move though, it didn't work out. Meanwhile, up in P5, this is the battle for P4. Priadko, Chard and Morris. All three drivers are defending heavily from each other. This is a huge battle. That's Chard around the outside. Does he get the move done? No, Priadko defends. Coming through turn 2. And that's Morris down the inside of Chard now into turn 3. Potentially coming into turn 4. These three drivers are battling it out for P4. That's Chard having a look down the inside. Morris close by, and Priadko is just trying to defend his position. And Priadko is taking a narrower line. They're almost alongside each other, coming through Seat, and now into Worth turn 7 and 8. And here's Chard down the inside. Whoa, and that's a very interesting place to overtake. We haven't seen any moves there until now. Chard up into P4. And Priadko then losing out with 15 minutes left in the race. And time has absolutely flown by. Oh, and that's Chard going wide. Priadko maybe coming alongside, but he's still just not close enough. And Morris, the ever-present threat, is hovering in the background. And it's only 0.2 seconds off. Let's follow Priadko. He's sandwiched between the McLaren and the Ferrari as they come through the last section, and we're going to probably see some very heavy defending from all three drivers now, or more specifically Chard and Priadko. You can see they're going all over the place, and Priadko says, "Give me my position back." He's flashing his headlights. That's Priadko with a late move into turn 1. Big lunge. But he's out of shape. Oh, and barely keeps it out of Chard. And that's Morris pulling alongside now. Round turn 3, round the outside. That was a big lunge from Priadko into turn 1. And he just lost stability and almost put it into Chard down at turn 2. Good car control from Priadko. In terms of who's made positions though, Chard has made 7 positions from where he started. Brilliant performance. And Priadko has lost 2. He of course qualified P3. But meanwhile, he's under attack from Morris now. In P6, 0.1 seconds. Coming into the hairpin now. Is this going to be his move? He stays to the outside. Priadko's defending. Little lock up from Priadko there on the rears. And Morris 0.4 seconds off of the driver ahead. Close racing then for P4 sorry. These drivers are battling for P5 now. Priadko and Morris, 2 Ferraris. Meanwhile, Eck has taken his drive-through, but behind Eck is Dieringer, who's defending from Hearn now. Dieringer on his first race. There's a Pro-Am driver though, so Hearn doesn't really want any kind of quarrel with Dieringer, as they come through turns 13 and 14, and there's Dieringer backing out into the chicane because he knows it's useless to try and fight. But you can see Eck just ahead there in the pink McLaren, and he managed to rejoin after his drive-through penalty just ahead of Deeringer. So he managed to stay ahead. Let's have a look for some more contact. Looks like we've just had some between car 84 and 14. And that must be huge. Oh, this is Priatko. This was that incident. Oh, no. That was Priatko and Morris, I believe, coming together. Yes, Priatko and Morris had a moment there. Let's have a look at that again. This is coming through 10-2. And again, he just gets up too far on the curb. And that is Priatko into Morris. Very unfortunate incident there. It was very recent, actually. And the gaps are starting to widen now. We only have 25 drivers in the lobby, starting with 32. We've had 7 drivers leave the lobby. High stakes race for everyone. Everyone just... the pressure is just insane. Meanwhile, Topinka out ahead. P1, and he's 3 seconds ahead of Hewlett, so he's managing that gap very well. So this is shaping up to be another race win for Topinka, but we still have 10 minutes left in the race. There's Hewlett in the McLaren just behind. We saw some close racing earlier between Topinka and Hewlett. Dixon as well at the race start, taking P1, but he just disappeared. And I still have no idea what's happened there. As we continue to follow Topinka. Meanwhile, down in P18, Maris is having a look at Divitini in the McLaren ahead. And looks like oh, that was Keldognetto missing out, by the looks of it, fairly recently. There's Keldognetto there in the background. Was there contact? I have no idea. There's nothing listed, so there was no altercation. But this is Maris now trying to make a move on the driver ahead, Divitini. Pro driver on the Pro-Am driver. 2 Omega Motorsport Italia cars. Oh, and there's a slow moving car around the outside of turn 12. Not sure who that is. It's not Keldognetto. It's after Keldognetto. Is that Nagy? Potentially car 77. But yes, that was Maras and Divitini just swapping places there. We just missed it. Maris then up into P16, Divitini down P17. Divitini's still made 6 positions overall. Maris has lost 4 positions. So Maris is looking to lower the damage to his race position. Meanwhile, just ahead of this group is Rodriguez, coming up on Pfeiffer now. Pfeiffer is P2 in the AM class, P14 overall at the moment. Jackson leading his first ever race in the AM class. And it's Rodriguez actually P3 in the Pro-Am class. He's managed to keep good pace. He's 0.5 seconds now off of Pfeiffer and closing on the little straight. Coming into turn 10 and then through turn 11. He's 0.3 seconds off. But the gap to Dieringer is about another 20 to 30 seconds. So it's unlikely he'll make that position. But here he goes, having a look down the inside into turn 13. Close there between Rodriguez and Pfeiffer, the Porsche and the Ferrari. So then, our top 3 drivers for each class, the Pinker, Hewlett and Rebecci being our top 3 for the Pro class. Eck, Dieringer and Rodriguez, who we're looking at now, are our top 3 for the Pro-Am class. And then Am class is Jackson, Pfeiffer and Brum. Brum, I believe, this also being his first time on the podium in his class. Meanwhile, Bubbins looking at Zanussi. These two have been battling all race long. Or Zanussi, you can see the little bit of oversteer coming through turn 12. And these two have got somewhat bad blood between them over the course of the race. They've had a couple collisions and they've generally not been giving each other any room for mistake. Meanwhile, Bobbins now only 0.2 seconds and he's had a better exit. And this is Zanussi. Is he going to defend into turn 1? Bobbins has a look down the inside. This looks like Bobbins making a move on Zanussi. He's still ahead. Zanussi maintains his position. This is down in P21. This is a battle for P21, but he's gone wide. And now, oh, and there's more contact coming through the right-hander. Zanussi and Bubbins definitely have something out for each other coming through the first section of the racetrack. That's not even close racing. That is just... that there seems to be something between these two drivers. They're not playing around. They're pushing each other as hard as they can. Bubbins only 0.4 seconds off of Zanussi. But here's the thing. Bubbins' fastest lap is 2 seconds faster than Zanussi. So I don't know why he's still stuck behind him. He's only 0.2. That's Zanussi going wide. Into turn 10 now, the straight. And is that Bubbins pass before the apex? No. Zanussi maintains it, but he's taken a wide line. And here they go, side by side through turns 12, 13 and 14 coming up. And that's still Bubbins struggling to make a move. Meanwhile, up in P15 is Rodriguez and Pfeiffer. Rodriguez has been building up this gap. He's been building up this pace over the course of the race. And now they're getting close to Jackson as well. 0.3 Rodriguez off of Pfeiffer. Pfeiffer 0.3 off of Jackson. This is the battle for P13 developing now. And that's all three going off the track there at turn 10 and 11. And they're all pushing hard. And that's Rodriguez, only 0.2 seconds. Seeing a very narrow line there through turn 13. You can see Guidolin in the background there. And Aston Martin. Sorry, that's Maris. He's 2 seconds behind. Meanwhile on the straight, 0.4 and 0.5 seconds respectively. And these three are going to be having a battle soon for the lead. It's 0.5 and 0.3 and 0.2. Here's Rodriguez around the outside of Pfeiffer. But they've both taken a wide line. And Rodriguez down the inside now into turn 4. Will he maintain it? He's taking a very narrow line. He's not taking any chances with Pfeiffer. On, he's lost it slightly. A little wiggle through there. Bit of oversteer. Meanwhile, Maris is now right behind Pfeiffer. And that's Rodriguez up into P14. Pfeiffer down P15. And Maris looking to make a position. And these are the drivers behind. Pfeiffer, then Maris, the Ferrari, then the Aston Martin. And we are right at the tail end of the race. We have 2 minutes remaining till the end. The last lap is just around the corner. And these guys are still having a battle for I believe it's P14. That's Maris 0.4, 0.3 seconds off. Meanwhile, Zanuski and Bubbins are still having a fight down in P21 and 22. They're having all sorts of altercations this race. Definitely not friends at the moment. And it looks like Maras has come into the pits. Maras has got a drive-through penalty.
Okay, the leader is on the final lap now. Give it
Last lap drama. Maris down in P18. Sorry, in the Aston Martin has got a drive-through penalty. And he drops further down the grid. He's now behind Urso. But it's the last lap then. Topinka still in the lead. He's 4 seconds ahead of Hewlett. Hewlett 16 seconds ahead of Rebecci. And this has been a very interesting race so far. There's just been action all over the place. All sorts of action going on. You know, Eck and Hearn battling for P9. Their positions within the top 10. There's Hearn coming up behind Eck now. Looking to make another couple positions. Hearn having made 21 overall. And it looks like Hearn down the inside into the final corner. And that's Hearn for an easy pass. Back to Topinka. You can see Keldog Neto in the foreground there, having a battle with Urso over P17. Meanwhile, the race leaders coming through the final section. Coming through turns 13 and 14. Europe car, then chicane RACC, then through New Holland. The start of his race was a bit scary. He's had a couple drivers have a go at his seat on the top step of the podium, but he's maintained it all race long. It's Topinka winning round 3 here at Spain. Topinka, the winner. Meanwhile, we get to watch some of the action further down. Keldog Neto and Urso swapping there, and Urso, I think Urso's just pitted. I don't think he realised it's the last. He still has another lap to do. Meanwhile, the other drivers come across the line. Hearn and Guidolin having a battle for P8. And they're coming through turn 13 now. And there are going to be some desperate moves, I'm sure, from Hearn. But he's already made such good progress. Why risk it now? Coming through the last right-hander flat. And it's Hearn 0.2 seconds off of Guidolin across the line. And Guidolin then 22 places up from where he started. Probably the driver that's made the most positions. And yes, Urso, I think, has mistakenly pulled into the pits. I don't think he's realised he needs to do another lap. Keldog Neto is still out there. So it's Jackson, Pfeiffer and Brum, your AM podium finishers. Then it's Eck, Dieringer and Rodriguez for your Pro-Am finishers. and then finally Topinka, Hewlett and Rebecci for your pro finishes. And that has been a very interesting race. Dixon, we still have no idea what happened to Dixon throughout the race. He just disappeared. There's just nothing, we have no idea what happened. He just completely disappeared off the scene. He was ahead of Topinka. This was potentially going to be the one race where Topinka does not finish on the top step of the podium. And unfortunately, Dixon just didn't make it. And that is the race, ladies and gents. That was very interesting. Topinka, I'm sure, must have been stressing a lot throughout the entire race. But he managed to keep a cool head, even with the other drivers coming past. And that is the final race order then. Topinka, Hewlett, then Rebecci, followed by Eck, Dieringer and Rodriguez for the Pro-Am class, and then Jackson, Pfeiffer and Brum in the Am class. Those are our podium finishes for each class. Topinka, a bit worried at the start, lost out to Dixon, but he managed to make it back up and also fended off a strong performance from Hewlett as well. His second finish on the podium. Same for Rebecci as well, who finished P3 in his second podium of the season. But Topinka then, 3 podiums, 3 race wins of the season. He is absolutely dominating the season so far. Now we've reached the halfway mark officially. 3 races past, 3 races to go. Meanwhile, Pfeiffer, I'm sure, has managed to pull off a lead over the other drivers in the Am category. The other drivers not being able to make it to the race today. So that deficit in points is going to need to be somehow accounted for. Meanwhile, in the Pro-Am category, Eck continues to perform at the top. He has managed to secure his second, potentially, I think it's his third podium of the season. So he's managed a podium finish every single race. And it's actually been a strong performance from Dieringer in P2 in the Pro-Am class. He had a strong performance today, good first race. But we also saw loads of drivers just completely lose it throughout the race. There's just 7 drivers that just did not, they just did not make it to the end, which is really unfortunate for those 7 drivers. And we'll see if we can pull up some highlights from the race. If you give me one moment. And let's have a look at the race start. And this is the race start. You can see drivers all jostling for position. Looks like we're following Jackson at the moment. Into turn 1. All fairly clean. You can see just all the different colours. Caldognetto there, having a look around the outside. There's Dieringer down the inside into turn 2. Woodcut just ahead of Jackson. And the race start was actually really quite clean, I think. We didn't see any major offs or contacts. However, we saw loads later on in the race. And that was Jackson with a double overtake on Deeringer and Woodcut. And there's Keldog Neto with a slow exit as well. All sorts of action going on. Of course, you can't see all of this happen from the commentary box necessarily. There's a lot going on. So further down the grid, this was an overtake by Daniel Hearn on Zanussi at lap 2. As he had a little bit of a better exit. So it came through 10-13. And it wasn't a clean overtake. Oh, yes, there's loads of contact there between the drivers. Let me turn on HUD just so we have a better idea of where we are. This is for P21. And that was definitely not clean racing from Zanussi. This is now Mundo and Rucroft. Lap 3. And looks like Mundo is coming up on the back of Zanussi. And that might have been an earlier mistake. Also, just looking down at the standings on the left hand side, Fox got a drive-through penalty really early on and then got disqualified. This meanwhile is Rucroft and Divitini battling for P24, sorry. Divitini coming down for a clean overtake into turn 1. But he went wide. And Mellet, and there was contact between Mellet. Oh dear, did not see that. Mellet and Maris come together. Mellet into the barriers on lap 3. This is lap 5 now. Woodcut and Oliveira. The Aston Martin and Ferrari. Through the left hand of turn 5. And that was Woodcut taking advantage of Oliveira's wide exit. Same for Pfeiffer. Pfeiffer just managed to take advantage of that quick moment. Unfortunate then for Woodcut. No, sorry, Oliveira. Coming through turn 5. This is the move by Chris Chard on Urso. Back down in P9. Little fake to the inside. But he got the line right and capitalised on slightly wider line by Urso. And that was Chard up into P9. This was back in lap 7. And apologies, just noticed my audio was not working. Anyway, here's Zanussi and Maras. David Zanussi and Tony Maras. This is for P19. Also notice on the left hand side, Hosco got a stop and go as Maris performs a clean overtake through turn 9. And I don't know whether it's just me, but Zanussi seems very aggressive. Again! I think we saw that earlier. Zanuski's been a very aggressive driver over the course of this weekend. We saw so many contacts between him and other drivers. Meanwhile, this is Ostricharts in P6 taking advantage of P5 Morris back in lap 9. And a cool head by Ostricharts by up into P5 then. This is Chard on Eck. As might have been that one overtake that we did not see earlier. Coming into turn 1. And it was Eck. Eck just let Chard by. And that is Eck working together with Chard. Just let him through. You can see the indicator to the right hand side. That was Chard then, improving. And here is Maras again and Zanussi. Zanussi in the purple Aston Martin. This is classified as an overtake. Coming through the chicane. Whoa! Yeah, Zanussi is very aggressive. And there is Bubbins having a look down the inside. into turn 1. That was very odd. This is meanwhile Chard on Merlino. See, they came through turn 9. It's got a little bit of an extra run up into the hairpin. Just choose the outside line. A little bit of a defence from Merlino. And that was actually Eck coming back by Chard. And this was later in the race after Eck had let Chard through, but there he let him through again. So Eck and Chard were working together a lot through the course of the race. This is now Rebecci and Priatko in their battle for P3. Priatko ran wide to turn 14. I think this is what we saw happen. No. This was earlier. Rebecci keeping his nose down the inside into the final corner. Oh, this was the side-by-side battle we had into turn 1. And unfortunately, the replay stops there. This is Neto and Rodriguez for P12, the two Pro-Am drivers. And that's Rodriguez on a very nice move. Turn 4, but he didn't get it done. So turn 5, just got the cut back. Actually get the move done by the looks of it. Joshua Rodriguez and Neto. This is now Morris and Chard. This is their battle for P4. And that late overtake from Chard and the switchback attempt from Morris coming alongside. And that was Morris's attempt to hold on to P4, but ultimately losing out to Chard. Here's Neto and Woodkit, lap 16. Neto in the McLaren and Woodkit in the Aston Martin, taking advantage of a little wide run by Neto. Neto managed to hold on to it through the exit of turn 9. That is very interesting. And oh, that was Neto going wide as well. Here's Merlino and Zanuski. This was down when they were in P16 and 17. Merlino down the inside into the hairpin, and Priatko also taking advantage of a wide Zanuski. Probably cleanest interaction we've seen with Zanuski so far. Good overtake by Merlino. Then this was lap 17, Bubbins on Mellet. This is Bubbins in the red Ferrari. But Mellet is a while back. Is unfortunate. And this was actually, this is quite interesting. This was, oh, that was Pfeiffer just peeling off into the pits. Just indicating to Bubbins you shouldn't go on that side. This is Bubbins and Zanuski. One of their many battles. Zanuski taking the chicane wide. Bubbins down the inside. Through the final corner. Across the pit straight. We saw plenty of action between these two, especially in the closing stages of the race. And that was, yeah, the action cuts there. This is back in P6 and 7, Morris making a move on Eck apparently. This was back when Eck had a drive-through penalty. You can see he's just not fighting at all. Eck just letting the faster drivers through. That was Morris up into P7. So Eck really, the whole race, he just let the drivers pass him just to keep it clean. This is Merlino, Luciano Merlino on Daniel Hearn. Through turn 3, Hearn took a wider line. You can see damage to the back of Merlino's car. coming into turn 4, the right-hander. Oh, and there's more contact there. And that's what we saw happen earlier, didn't we? Between Merlino and Hearn. We saw Hearn and Merlino come together in a huge collision. I think this is the collision about to happen at turn 2. Hearn with a better run into turn 1 down the pit straight, looking at a move down the inside. He gets past, and then, yeah, there we go. There was the tap on the inside from Merlino. And then Merlino just left at that point as Guidolin lost a position. This was Woodcut on Keldognito right at the end, lap 24 for P12. And that was Keldognito. We've seen quite a couple cars go wide through there. We've seen these two have a battle, especially through there as well. And again, this time, Woodkit's managed to stay ahead into the hairpin, and Woodkit taking a slightly shallower line. This was Chard and Priadko, that massive battle for P4 into turn 7 now, and that was the opportunistic dive. Oh, and you could see, actually, I didn't notice that earlier, Morris with the evasive action. He came in really quick and just had to just get out of the way as quickly as possible so he didn't collect Priadko on the way through. This is Hearn and Dieringer right towards the end of the race, down in P10 and 11. And that is smart racing from both drivers. And you can see Dieringer just a little lift off the throttle. He knew there was just no point fighting Hearn, especially towards the end. Just keep it clean, just bring the car across the finish line. He was already P2 in his class, so there was no need to fight for that last position. This was Divitini and Maras. Maras going slightly wide through there, turns 16. And that was Divitini with a horrible exit by the looks of things, as Maras just comes cruising by for P16. Quick overtaking then, especially here at Barcelona. We've seen so many quick overtakes that we just haven't managed to catch during the race. This was another one of the many collisions between the familiar purple Aston Martin of Zanussi and the red Ferrari of Jordan Bubbins. I would be very scared of Bubbins at the moment, Zanussi, if I were you, because Bubbins is one of the stewards. Considering the amount of contact we saw, that was actually a nice overtake by Zanussi down into turn 4, so I'll give it to you there, mate. Beautiful overtake. And here's another one of their encounters into turn 1. Bubbins and Zanussi coming through turn 2 now. And that was the wide run from Zanussi. Again, just look at how close that was to contact. I'm not sure whether there was actually any physical contact there, but it looked very, very close. Bubbins in P22. And this is the third one that we see between Bubbins and Zanussi. These two had a very long battle at the end of the race. And Zanussi collecting a bit of gravel there, allowing Bubbins past, but not quite, into the hairpin with a switchback for Bubbins alongside into turn 12, but ultimately he still got stuck behind him. This is our last couple laps between Rodriguez and Pfeiffer. Rodriguez performing quite well towards the end of the race. Here we go, coming down alongside into turn 4. Beautiful overtake from Rodriguez. We've seen nothing but clean racing. We actually saw the lots of oversteer there going through turn 4. Pfeiffer almost hitting the back of that beautiful Porsche. Here's Hearn on Felix Eck. for P9. This is again right at the end of the race. It's the poor exit from Eck, and you can see just how clean Eck is with conceding these positions. Inconveniences neither himself nor the driver behind. You can see Hearn there with the hazard. Thank you. And then the race finished. Pinker with the race win. A hat-trick of victories. 3 race wins, 3 races, 3 pole positions for the man on top. And no one has managed to unseat this man from the top step of the podium. And it's Pinker still right at the top of the championship. And that concludes our race here at Barcelona in Spain. It was an incredible one. We saw loads of action. Some good overtakes here in the replay. But also lots of collisions, I'd say. And unfortunately, because of the way the track was working, we just couldn't catch all of that action live. But we saw plenty of action between Zaniewski and Bubbins. I'm sure the stewards will have loads to say about that. But yes, that is our 3rd race done. Our top 3 in the pro class was Pinker, Craig, Hewlett and Rebecci. Then in the Pro-Am it was Eck, Rodriguez and Dieringer. Not necessarily in that order. I think Dieringer finished 2nd in his first race of the season. It's a good performance from Dieringer. Hats off to you, sir. And then for the AM class, we have a new class winner, Jackson, followed by Pfeiffer in P2. And then it was someone in P3. Unfortunately, I do not have the results right in front of me, but a interesting race nonetheless. So next week, we'll be back here. I believe it is at Zolder for round 4 of the championship. We're now officially halfway through. So see you then.